There is a place in the Judean desert, a place as dry as the bones of dead prophets. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd, searching for a lost goat, threw a rock into a dark cleft in the cliffside. The sound he heard in return was not of rock striking rock. It was the sound of shattering pottery, the sound of a seal being broken. Inside the caves of Qumran, he found clay jars that had guarded a secret for 2 millennia. Manuscripts, fragments of a past the world thought was lost. Among these scrolls was one of the most potent, dangerous, and controversial texts ever written. A book that didn't just claim to predict the future, but provided a roadmap, a countdown to the end of human history. The Book of Daniel. To most, the Bible is a spiritual guide, a book of morality, comfort, or ancient history. But to some, hidden within its pages, there exists a clockwork mechanism, and this text, the Book of Daniel, is the key that winds that clock. For centuries, emperors, theologians, dictators, and academics have pored over these words, trying to decipher their code. They don't see it as a historical artifact. They see it as a war script, a script that describes the rise and fall of every great empire, from Babylon to today, and most disturbing, it describes the last empire, the final empire that will precede the end of all things. But what is this book? Who was the man or the entity we call Daniel? Tradition says he was a Hebrew sage in the court of King Nebuchadnezzar, an interpreter of dreams who lived in the 6th century BC, a man who saw the future with terrifying clarity. However, modern historical criticism suggests something even more mysterious. They point to the language, the style, and the precision of the prophecies about Greece, and suggest the book was not written in the 6th century BC. They theorize it was pseudepigrapha, a work written centuries later by an anonymous author during one of the darkest periods of Jewish history, an author who used the name of the legendary Daniel to give divine authority to his message of resistance. If this is true, the Book of Daniel would not be a prediction of the future, but a commentary on the past, a work of political and religious propaganda disguised as prophecy. But this explanation, while academically elegant, fails to answer one crucial question. If the book was written merely to comfort the Jews under Greek oppression, why? Why does it continue to come true? Why does its script seem to resonate, decade after decade, with the events of our modern world in a way that defies logic? The truth may be stranger than either theory. The Book of Daniel may be neither history nor prophecy. It may be a template, an archetypal structure that history itself is forced to repeat, like a scratched record, playing the same dark song of rise and fall, of tyranny and liberation, until the clock finally stops. To understand what is happening today, in our halls of power, in our wars in the Middle East, we cannot look at yesterday's newspapers. We must look to Daniel's darkest vision, the vision that started it all. Not the vision of 70 years, not the statue of metal, but the vision of the sea. In the 7th chapter of his book, Daniel describes a dream, not a dream of angels or ladders to heaven, a nightmare. He sees the great sea, the Mediterranean, being churned up by the 4 winds of heaven, and from the chaotic water, 4 things emerge, 4 colossal beasts. The first, a lion with eagle's wings, a symbol of swift, royal power. Historians agree, this is Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's empire, the winged lion. Daniel watches until its wings are torn off and it is forced to stand on 2 feet like a man, given a human mind. The empire is tamed, humbled. Then the second beast, a bear, heavy, brutal, raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth. This is Medo-Persia, the bear that rose, lopsided in its power, devouring kingdoms, the 3 ribs being its 3 great conquests, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. The third, a leopard, swift, agile, but with 4 wings and 4 heads. This is the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great, a conquest as fast as a winged leopard. But upon his death, the empire was divided among his 4 generals, the 4 heads. Up to this point, Daniel's vision is a precise history lesson. So precise, in fact, it is the skeptic's primary argument that the book was written after these events. But then, something changes. The vision veers off the tracks of known history and plunges into new, terrifying territory. The 4th beast. Daniel has no words to describe it. It is not a lion, a bear, or a leopard. It is not a creature of nature. It is something different. He describes it as terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims, and it trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts that came before it. This, all agree, is the Roman Empire. Rome was not like the empires before it. It did not just conquer, it assimilated. It ground down. Its iron teeth were its legions. Its roads, which bound the known world, were the chains that held it. It crushed and devoured. It trampled what was left. And crucially, it was the empire that destroyed Jerusalem and the Second Temple in 70 AD. But this is where the prophecy becomes a loaded weapon. Daniel watches the fourth beast and sees something new. It has 10 horns, and as he watches, an 11th horn, a little horn, sprouts up among the others. This new horn is different. It has eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth that spoke boastfully. To make room for itself, this little horn uproots 3 of the original 10 horns. This is the archetype, the first glimpse of what the world would come to call the Antichrist. Now let's apply the skeptic's logic. If the book was written by an anonymous author in the 2nd century BC during the Maccabean crisis, then this prophecy also must have a historical explanation. And it does. To the original author of Daniel, the little horn was not some distant future figure. It was the man they hated most, the tyrant who was actively trying to destroy their faith. His name was Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Antiochus was a king of the Seleucid Empire, one of Alexander's 4 generals. He fits the description frighteningly well. He rose to power obscurely, little, and removed 3 other contenders for the throne, the 3 horns. He was notoriously arrogant, giving himself the title Epiphanes, which means God manifest. He had a mouth that spoke boastfully, and most importantly, he committed the ultimate act of blasphemy. In 167 BC, Antiochus invaded Jerusalem, outlawed the Jewish faith, and erected an altar to Zeus in the Holy Temple. He sacrificed a pig on the altar. This was the act the Jews called the abomination of desolation. The little horn, the first Antichrist, had arrived and defiled the most sacred place on earth. For the author of Daniel, the story ended there. Antiochus would be destroyed by God. The temple would be cleansed, which happened in the Maccabean revolt, celebrated today as Hanukkah, and the eternal kingdom would be established. Problem solved. The book is history, but it wasn't solved. Antiochus died. The temple was cleansed, but the kingdom of God did not come. Instead, just a few decades later, the iron legions of Rome marched into Judea. The fourth beast in its fullness had arrived. Was the book of Daniel wrong? Or was the prophecy bigger than Antiochus? Daniel's prophecy did not die with the Maccabees. It became a ghost, a specter that survived the fall of Rome, that haunted the Middle Ages, and that now hangs over the 21st century. The fourth beast, the Roman Empire, was never truly destroyed. It just changed form. Its iron teeth became the cannons of Europe. Its laws became the bedrock of Western civilization. And its 10 horns, the fragmentation of the empire, became the nations of modern Europe. The prophecy of Daniel 7 is not about the past. It is about the ghost of Rome, a revived empire that will, at the end of days, finally give birth to the true little horn. And to find the date of that event, modern prophets turn to Daniel's other great calculation, the most dangerous numerical code ever written. In chapter 9, Daniel is not dreaming. He is praying. He is in Babylonian exile and calculates that the 70 years of captivity predicted by the prophet Jeremiah are nearly over. He prays for the forgiveness of his people. In response, the angel Gabriel appears, and what he tells Daniel changes the course of prophecy forever. Gabriel says essentially, "You are thinking too small, Daniel. It's not 70 years, it's 70 weeks. 70 sevens are decreed for your people and your holy city." But in the original Hebrew, the word for weeks is shavim, which means groups of 7, 70 sevens. The vast majority of scholars, ancient and modern, agree. This is not 70 weeks of days. It is 70 weeks of years, 70 sevens of years, a total of 490 years. Gabriel delivers a divine timeline to Daniel, a schedule for redemption, and he breaks it into 3 parts. First, a period of 7 sevens, 49 years, and 62 sevens, 434 years, for a total of 69 sevens, 483 years. This period would begin, Gabriel says, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, and it would end with the arrival of the Anointed One, the ruler. And here the prophecy becomes mathematical. Historians and theologians have dived into the Persian archives. The decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem was given by Artaxerxes Longimanus in 445 BC. If you count 483 prophetic years, using the 360-day Babylonian calendar, from 445 BC, you land with spine-chilling precision in the year 32 AD, the year that a man named Jesus of Nazareth rode into Jerusalem on a donkey as crowds shouted, "Hosanna," proclaiming him ruler and Messiah. The triumphal entry. Daniel 9:25 appears to have predicted centuries in advance the exact day the Messiah would present himself. But the prophecy does not end in triumph. It immediately turns dark. Gabriel continues, after the 62 sevens, the Anointed One will be cut off and will have nothing. Cut off, a Hebrew word meaning to be killed, executed. Following the triumphal entry, the Messiah was not crowned. He was arrested, tried, and crucified. The prophecy foretold not only his arrival but his execution, and then chaos. Gabriel predicts, and the people of a ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. 40 years after the crucifixion in 70 AD, the people of the ruler who will come, the people of the Roman Empire, the fourth beast, led by General Titus, laid siege to Jerusalem and burned the second temple to the ground. 69 of the 70 weeks were fulfilled. The clock stopped. But what about the 70th week? What happened to the last 7, the final 7 years of the 490-year timeline? Gabriel's math is clear. 69 weeks passed. The Messiah was cut off. The temple was destroyed. And then, nothing. The prophetic clock stopped at 69. For 2,000 years, humanity has been living in a parenthesis, a theological gap, the church age, a time of waiting, where the clock is paused, 1 second to midnight. The question that haunts prophecy hunters is not if, but when. What will restart the clock? What will initiate this last, terrible 70th week? The answer lies in the final part of Gabriel's prophecy, the part the world is desperately and perhaps unconsciously trying to fulfill today. Daniel 9 verse 27, the most disputed verse in the Bible. And he, who is he? Some say it is the Messiah. Others, as we will see, believe it is the ruler who will come, the leader of the revived Roman Empire, the Antichrist of Daniel 7. And he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years. The Hebrew word here is gabar. It is a crucial word, and its meaning is the key to everything. Many modern interpreters, especially those looking at Middle East peace deals, insist that gabar means to confirm or to strengthen a pre-existing agreement. They look, therefore, for a peace deal already in progress, which a world leader will merely rubber stamp and strengthen, kicking off the final 7 years. But that is only half the story. Gabar is a power word. It means to be strong, to prevail, to make mighty. Elsewhere in the Bible, it is used to describe how David prevailed over Goliath. It is not a passive act of confirmation. It is an act of power. The prophecy may not be talking about a leader who confirms a peace treaty. It may be talking about a leader who imposes a treaty by the force of his will. A leader who prevails over the chaos of the Middle East and forces the many to accept his terms. This covenant, this pact, is the trigger. For decades, the world has tried to create this pact, the final agreement between Israel and its neighbors. But something always fails. Peace is like sand in the desert. It slips through the fingers. But Daniel's prophecy says he will succeed. He will force the covenant, and the world will celebrate. The world, desperate for stability, will accept this leader as a savior. And why would Israel, Daniel's people, accept such a deal? Because this leader, this coming prince, will give them the one thing they have desired for 2,000 years, the one thing necessary for biblical prophecy in its entirety to be fulfilled. He will give them permission to build the third temple. This is the most volatile piece of real estate on the planet, the epicenter of 3 world religions, the Temple Mount. To Islam, it is the noble sanctuary. the site of the Prophet Muhammad's night journey. It is Islam's third holiest site. To Judaism, it is Har Habayit, the site of Solomon's first temple and Herod's second temple. It is the location where the Shekinah, the manifest presence of God, dwelt on earth. It is so holy that many Orthodox Jews will not even set foot on the mount, fearing they will accidentally tread on the Holy of Holies. Currently, the Temple Mount is controlled by an Islamic Waqf under Jordanian administration. Israel controls security but not administration. It is a powder keg with a very short fuse. For secular Jews in Israel, the situation is a political status quo. But for a growing, dedicated group of religious and messianic Jews, this status quo is an abomination. Enter the halls of the Temple Institute in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. This is not a museum. It is a workshop. For over 30 years, this institute has, meticulously and with millions of dollars in funding, recreated every sacred vessel needed for the service of the Third Temple. The robes of the Levitical priests, woven from linen and threads of gold, the solid gold 24-karat menorah, ready to be lit, the altar of incense, the silver and copper vessels. They have even trained a lineage of men believed to be direct descendants of Aaron, the Kohanim, to perform the ancient rituals. They are not waiting for a miracle. They are preparing for one. For them, the building of the Third Temple is not an apocalyptic fantasy. It is a biblical command. It is the prerequisite for the arrival of their messianic age. But one ingredient is missing, the rarest and most impossible of all, the para aduma, the red heifer. According to the Book of Numbers, chapter 19, the only way to purify the temple site and its priests for service, after 2 millennia of ritual impurity, contact with the dead, is through the ashes of a perfect red heifer. Perfect means it cannot have more than 2 non-red hairs. It can never have worn a yoke. For centuries, no such heifer was born. But recently, using the science of genetics and importing embryos from breeders in Texas, organizations in Israel have announced the birth of several perfect candidates. They are being raised in secret, under guard, waiting to reach the ritual age of 2. They have the instruments, they have the priests, they have the ashes for purification. The only thing missing is political permission. And here is the impasse that defines the world. To build the Third Temple, the Dome of the Rock would have to be removed, an act that would instantly ignite a global holy war, World War III. No Israeli leader would ever dare do it, unless a global leader, a coming prince, as part of a covenant with many, could negotiate the impossible. Imagine a scenario, a comprehensive Middle East peace, a deal that gives the Palestinians a state, security to the Arab nations, and normalization with Israel. And in return, as the grandest concession of all, the many, the Arab nations and perhaps even the Vatican, agree to a shared Temple Mount. Perhaps the Dome of the Rock doesn't need to be destroyed. Perhaps the temple can be built next to it, a house of prayer for all nations, exactly like the ancient Abrahamic temple recently built in Abu Dhabi, but this time at the epicenter of it all. It would be the single greatest diplomatic achievement in human history, and it would be the final trigger. The clock of Daniel 9:27 would begin to tick. The 70th week would commence. He will confirm or impose a covenant with many for 7 years. With the Third Temple built, Orthodox Jews would do what their artifacts were designed for. They would reestablish the ancient system of animal sacrifices. And here, Daniel's prophecy reaches its terrible climax. And in the middle of the 7 years, after 3.5 years of celebrated world peace, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. The same leader who brought the peace, the same leader who allowed the temple, the architect of the world's utopia, will break the covenant. He will march into the newly built temple. The ruler who will come, the little horn of Daniel 7, will reveal his true face. And just like his prototype, Antiochus Epiphanes, he will commit the abomination of desolation. The Apostle Paul in 2 Thessalonians describes this exact moment. He calls him the man of lawlessness, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. He will not place a statue of Zeus in the temple. He will place himself. For 2 millennia, Christians have hunted this figure, the Antichrist. They saw him in Nero. They saw him in the popes of the Middle Ages. Martin Luther was convinced the papacy was the little horn. The Puritans saw him in the Catholic kings of Spain. The Russians saw him in Napoleon. The World War II generation saw him in Hitler. The Cold War generation saw him in Gorbachev. Every candidate failed. Every predicted end of the world came and went. The prophetic machine of Daniel seemed to produce only paranoia. But modern interpreters believe past generations were wrong because they lacked the global infrastructure. The little horn of Daniel 7 and the prince of Daniel 9 are not just regional leaders. The prophecy says he will subdue the world, that he will speak boastfully, and that authority was given him over every tribe and people and language and nation, as the book of Revelation describes. He could not be a Roman emperor or a 20th century dictator. He would need a global platform, a platform that only exists now. He will not be an obvious tyrant. The world will not accept a new Hitler. The world, broken by pandemics, climate change, economic collapse, and endless regional wars, will be begging for a solver. The Antichrist will not come with armies. He will come with solutions. He will not be an ideologue. He will be a technocrat, a pragmatic genius. He will be the man who finally solves the Middle East problem. He will be the man who unifies the world's economies under a new digital system, the mark of the beast. He will be the man who brings peace and security. The Apostle Paul warns us, for when they say, there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. This leader will not be a religious man in the traditional sense, but he will use religion. Daniel 11 says of him, he shall pay no attention to the gods of his fathers, but in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses. He may even promote a new global spirituality, a syncretic blend of all faiths united under the banner of peace, tolerance, and progress. A religion where humanity is its own God, a global Abrahamic house. And here the prophecy offers a glimpse of his methodology. Daniel 8, speaking of the same figure, says, by his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall become great. Without warning or by peace he shall destroy many. Read that again. By peace he shall destroy many. His weapon is not war. His weapon is peace, a false peace, a peace that demands total compliance. And what of his origins? Daniel 7 says he emerges from the fourth beast, the Roman Empire. This has led generations to look for a European leader, a new Caesar from Rome or Brussels. But the people of the ruler who will come, who destroyed Jerusalem, were the Roman people, the legions. And those legions were staffed by men from all over the empire, including Syria and the Middle East. The ruler, who is to come, may not be Western. He may be a leader who emerges from the Middle East itself, a man who can somehow claim both Roman and Semitic heritage, able to unify West and East. But the strangest prophecy about him is in Daniel 11:37. He shall pay no attention to the desire of women. This passage has puzzled theologians for centuries. Some speculate he will be asexual or homosexual, but the translation may be deeper. The desire of women in Hebrew may refer to the Messiah, the one desired by every mother in Israel. He will have no regard for the true Messiah. Others point to a dark, modern interpretation, that this figure will transcend humanity itself. In an age of transhumanism, perhaps the desire of women, the desire to procreate naturally, is obsolete to him. Perhaps he is the herald of a post-human age, and this brings us to his final blasphemy. Daniel 7 says, he shall think to change the times and the law. What does this mean? It is not just changing the calendar or civil laws. The Hebrew here is specific. Times, zemanim, refers to the sacred times, the festivals, the Sabbaths. Law, dat, refers to the divine law, the Torah. This leader will not just declare himself God. He will attempt to rewrite the very framework of moral and spiritual reality. He will cancel God's holy times and replace them with his own holidays. He will abolish God's moral laws. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, and replace them with a new global morality based on utility, power, and self-worship. He will not be a man breaking the rules. He will be a man remaking the rules. And when he sits in the temple, declaring himself God, the clock of Daniel 9:27 will hit the midpoint. 3.5 years will have passed, and the final 3.5 years the Great Tribulation, will begin. Daniel 12 says, "There shall be a time of trouble, such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. It is the period of persecution. The little horn, who wages war against the saints and prevails over them. His reign will seem absolute. The world will worship him. The saints will be silenced. Total darkness will cover the earth. For a time, times, and half a time, 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days." Daniel's mathematics are precise and terrifying. The clock, which started ticking in 445 BC, which stopped in 32 AD, and which has been paused for 2,000 years, is waiting for a trigger that looks more than ever like it is being assembled in our generation. The book of Daniel is not a story. It is a mechanism, a series of locks and keys, and each must turn in the correct sequence for the final door to open. Over 2.5 millennia we have watched these keys be forged. Now, for the first time in history, all of them seem to be on the table at the same time. These are not 7 signs of one man. They are 7 stages of the prophetic machine itself. The first key, the revival of the fourth beast. The fourth beast, Rome, never died. Its ghost of a unified, centralized empire that crushes and devours is alive. For the first time since Rome, we have an interconnected global system of finance, politics, and culture. We have the technology to create a unified world government, the 10 horns coalescing into one system. The infrastructure for the little horn is ready. The second key, the awakening of the fig tree. Jesus said, "Learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near." The fig tree is the symbol of Israel. For nearly 1,300 years, the fig tree was dead. Daniel's people were scattered. The prophecy could not be fulfilled. But in 1948, against all odds, Israel was reborn. In 1967, it captured Jerusalem. The fig tree has put forth its leaves. The prophetic clock, according to futurists, has been reactivated. The main stage is set. The third key, the quest for the covenant with many, of Daniel 9:27. The 7-decade obsession of world diplomacy to forge a final deal between Israel and the Arab world. Every failed attempt only increases the pressure and desire for the next deal, for the leader who will finally succeed. The world is not just willing to accept this pact, it is desperate for it. The trigger is being polished. The fourth key, the architecture of the temple. The prophecy requires a temple in Jerusalem. It requires sacrifices. 30 years ago, this was the fantasy of zealots. Today, it is a logistical reality. The vessels are ready. The priests are being trained. The purification method, the red heifer, is being prepared. The only obstacle is no longer religious or logistical. It is merely political, an obstacle that the man of the covenant will be designed to remove. The fifth key, the changing of times and law. The little horn's rebellion to change the times and the law has already begun. We live in an era where the very definition of objective truth is under assault. The Judeo-Christian morality, the law, dat, that formed the bedrock of the West, is being actively dismantled and replaced by a new self-centered ethic. The falling away, the apostasy predicted by Paul, is preparing the world to accept the Antichrist's new morality. The sixth key, the shadow of the abomination of desolation. A man in the temple declaring himself God. But what if our generation is preparing an even more seductive abomination? Silicon Valley is in an open race to create artificial general intelligence, a godlike mind, in a machine. What if the man of lawlessness doesn't just declare himself God, but proves it by merging with an omniscient AI? What if the image of the beast that speaks is an AI that governs the world, demanding worship? The technology for the final blasphemy is being patented as we speak. The seventh key, the end of the calculation. A time, times, and half a time, 3.5 years. The little horn's reign is absolute, but it is finite. Daniel's clockwork mechanism is not just a prediction of doom, it is a promise of an end to the doom. The book of Daniel does not end with the little horn, it ends with another vision. As Daniel watches the little horn in his blasphemous triumph, he looks up. I kept looking, until thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. The court is seated. The books are opened. The fourth beast is slain, its body destroyed and thrown into the fire. The little horn is judged. And then Daniel sees the end of history. And I saw, and behold, one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. The manuscript found in the cave was not just a war script. It was a contract for a transfer of power. What began in a fever dream in ancient Babylon, what was sealed in clay jars at Qumran, what haunted Roman emperors and modern dictators, is now playing out. The keys are being aligned. The covenant is being drafted. The architecture of the temple is being prepared. The countdown, paused for 2 millennia, is about to resume. Daniel's 70th week is on the horizon. The question is no longer if the script will be fulfilled. The question is, who exactly will be the final protagonist? And will you be watching when the clock finally strikes midnight?